In front of the whole class, the teacher grabbed the black girl's hair. She called it messy, unprofessional, unworthy. With one cruel snip, she thought she could take away her dignity. But the teacher didn't understand. That hair carried generations of strength. That hair was her crown, not something to be mocked. She thought she was teaching a lesson. Instead, she exposed her own ignorance to the world. Because when the truth came out, it wasn't the black girl who stood small. It was the teacher drowning in her own shame. "Take that off!" "Now." Miss Carter's voice cut through the room like a blade. The classroom went quiet. All heads turned toward Naomi, sitting near the back, wearing a soft navy scarf over her hair. Naomi glanced up, caught off guard. "Sorry," she said softly. "I said take that scarf off. This isn't a place for gang culture or head wraps." A few students snickered. One boy whispered, "Uh-oh." Naomi's voice was calm but firm. "I'm not wearing it for fashion or rebellion. My hair's not in condition to be out today. It's a protective scarf," Ms. Carter scoffed. "Hair condition. You're not at a salon, Naomi. This is school, no head coverings, period. Unless it's religious, which I know it's not. In your case," Naomi looked down, inhaled slowly. "I just wanted to focus in class today without being stared at." The teacher took a few steps closer, then follow the rules like everyone else. "You think you're special? Because you get a scholarship? This school doesn't bend for excuses." Murmurs swept across the room. Naomi's fists clenched under the desk. "I'm not asking for special treatment," she said quietly. "I'm asking for respect." Ms. Carter's eyes narrowed. "Respect? You hide your head like you're ashamed. You want respect. Show your face. Take it off." The classroom went dead silent. Even the snickering stopped. Naomi's breath caught heart pounding. She slowly removed the scarf. Underneath her natural coils were dry, partially detangled, frizzed from last night's storm. A few students let out small gasps. Someone stifled a laugh. "See, you're fine," Ms. Carter said coldly. "But if you insist on looking wild, we'll fix that." Naomi blinked. "Excuse me." Miss Carter walked to her desk, picked up a pair of scissors used for classroom projects, then turned back toward Naomi. "We teach standards here. Grooming matters. If no one at home is going to help you manage your appearance, we will." Naomi froze. "You're not serious. Stand up," the teacher said. Naomi didn't move. Her eyes locked with Miss Carter's. "I'm not letting you touch me." Miss Carter lunged forward. Before Naomi could react, the teacher grabbed a small section of her hair near the side and snip. A sharp gasp filled the room. Naomi stood completely still as the hair fell onto her desk like a dropped feather. Carter straightened, holding the scissors with chilling nonchalance. "There. A start. Now maybe you'll learn to present yourself properly." Naomi didn't scream, didn't cry. She slowly picked up the hair, folded it gently in a tissue, slipped it into her backpack. Then she looked up, eyes calm, steady, unblinking. And for a brief moment the room wasn't silent out of shock. It was afraid. Naomi stood up slowly. The scissors were still in Ms. Carter's hand, though her grip faltered when their eyes met. No one in the room dared to breathe. Naomi's voice was low, almost too calm. "You think that was discipline? That wasn't discipline," she said again, a little louder. "That was power abuse. That was humiliation. And you just did it in front of witnesses." Miss Carter's expression twitched. "Sit down, Naomi. You're only making this worse for yourself." Naomi didn't move. She turned slightly, addressing the class instead. "Did anyone laugh?" she asked. A few students looked away. One girl nodded guiltily. Did anyone stop her? Silence? Did anyone think, "This is wrong"? Or were you all too scared? It could be you next. A tense beat passed. Ms. Carter's voice cracked through again. "That's enough. If you want to make a scene, go to the principal's office." Naomi zipped her backpack slowly, then walked toward the door. Before exiting, she paused and looked back one last time. Her voice was clear. "You shouldn't have touched me. You won't get to do it again." Then she left, and behind her, 30 students sat frozen in place, some in shame, some in fear, one or two in awe. The next morning, Naomi didn't speak to anyone. She walked the halls with her scarf back on her face, calm eyes unreadable, but the school wasn't calm. Someone had recorded what happened in class. The moment Miss Carter snatched the scissors, the sound of the cut, Naomi's silence, and overnight it had gone viral. 31 million views, hands off our hair, justice for Naomi. By first period, phones were buzzing, screens lit up in classrooms, whispered voices behind locker doors. In the teacher's lounge, a different kind of silence. Who posted it? Principal Monroe asked, his tone clipped. Does it matter? Ms. Jennings replied, It's already out there, we're on fire. In Naomi's homeroom, her desk was surrounded by an invisible wall. No one dared sit next to her. A few glanced her way. No one said a word. The intercom crackled. Attention students, we are aware of an incident circulating online. The administration is conducting an internal review. Until then, please refrain from sharing or discussing it on campus. Naomi looked up at the ceiling. Refrain from discussing it. You mean, pretend it didn't happen, she thought. At lunch, she walked past a group of girls laughing at their phones. It's not even that bad. It's just hair, one of them said. Bet. She loved the attention. Naomi paused, turned slowly, and said nothing. Just looked. Long enough for the girl to fall silent, long enough for the others to shift uncomfortably. Then Naomi walked away, still calm, but burning. The next few days felt like walking through a fog. No one said anything directly to Naomi, but they didn't have to. The space around her grew colder. Wider. At her locker, people moved a little quicker to grab their books and leave. In class, teachers glanced at her, then looked away. At lunch, no one sat beside her. Not even Sarah, who used to walk home with her, who once braided her hair in the back of the library. Naomi sat at the far end of the cafeteria, alone with a tray she barely touched. Across the room, whispers circled like vultures. Maybe she's exaggerating everything. Her mom's probably telling her to play victim. They always act like the world's against them. Naomi kept her head down. She tried not to listen. She tried not to care. But silence, too, can be sharp. After school, she stood near the bike racks waiting for the air to clear. Sarah passed by, headphones and eyes forward. Naomi reached out. Hey, Sarah slowed down but didn't stop. My mom said, I shouldn't get involved, she said quietly. She thinks this whole thing is complicated. Naomi's chest tightened. I didn't ask for this. I know. Sarah replied. Then she kept walking. Naomi stood still, the cold wind biting her skin. She wasn't angry. Not yet. She was just disappearing. That evening, Naomi sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the same blue scarf folded neatly in her hands. Her mother knocked lightly and entered, her face drawn, but strong. You don't have to be brave all the time. You know, she said. Sitting beside her, Naomi didn't answer right away. She was tired of words, tired of pretending everything would just pass. They all think I'm trouble now, Naomi said quietly. Even the ones who used to sit next to me. Her mother's hand found hers, steady and firm. That's because they don't know who you are, she said. But you do, and that matters more than all of them put together. Naomi looked up, eyes burning but dry. It's not just about me anymore, she said. It's about every girl who looks like me, every girl who'll sit in those chairs after me. Her mother nodded, a sad, proud smile tugging at her lips. Then show them, she whispered. Remind them who you are. Naomi unfolded the scarf slowly, letting it slip through her fingers. For the first time in days, her chest lifted. She wasn't disappearing. She was sharpening. Naomi sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop open, notebook beside her scribbled full. Her search history was no longer about hair care routines. Now it was student rights. Under Title VI, legal action against discrimination in public schools, natural hair discrimination lawsuits. She read everything, case files, testimonies, legal codes. She wasn't just hurt anymore, she was informed. Every night she highlighted words she didn't understand and Googled them. Every morning she copied them into a clean journal titled, "They Don't Get to Decide Who I Am." By the end of the week, she had printed copies of policies from the Department of Education. She wrote her own version of what happened, factual, detailed, emotionless. It read like a report, but underlined twice she wrote, "Humiliation isn't part of any curriculum." Sunday afternoon, a gray sedan pulled up in front of her house. Naomi's uncle stepped out, tall, calm, sharp in every movement. She hadn't seen him in years. "Hey, firecracker," he said, giving her a one-armed hug. "Heard someone tried to snuff you out. I didn't ask Mom to call you. She didn't have to. The internet did." He dropped a thick folder on the table. "You did your homework. Now let's do this right inside. Legal templates, a list of national civil rights groups, a media contact he trusted, and a sealed envelope labeled, 'For the school board. If they stay quiet.'" Naomi stared at him. "Why are you helping?" Because one day he said, "I want my daughter to walk into a classroom with her head held high, and no one ever questions the crown she was born with." Tuesday morning, Naomi found a white envelope slipped into her locker. It read, "You've been selected to speak at our annual Honors Assembly. Please prepare a short speech highlighting your growth and gratitude." She stared at it for a long time. Ms. Carter must have assumed she'd stay quiet, that she'd take the stage, smile politely, say thank you and sit down. Naomi folded the letter neatly, slipped it into her binder. That night she rewrote her speech 5 times. She kept the opening sweet, the middle calm, the end sharp. She added 2 lines no one would expect. One of them was, "I've learned that silence doesn't keep you safe, it keeps them comfortable." She emailed a copy to her uncle, who sent back a thumbs up and a voice memo. "This isn't just a speech now, it's the strike before the storm." Naomi saved the final draft on a flash drive, tucked it into her pocket. She looked at herself in the mirror, hair, natural face steady. "Let's begin," she whispered. The auditorium was packed, lights dimmed. Parents and teachers sat in neat rows. Honor students lined up backstage, adjusting their ties and dresses. Naomi stood at the edge of the curtain, her flash drive gripped in one hand, speech in the other. Her hair was uncovered, her curls free. No scarf, no fear. Ms. Carter stood near the front row, arms crossed, smiling politely, as another student finished their thank you speech. She didn't know Naomi was speaking today. No one had told her. The principal adjusted the microphone. "Next, please welcome one of our highest achieving students, a young woman whose growth has inspired so many." Naomi Ellis. Soft applause. Naomi walked out slowly. The room quieted as she reached the podium. She scanned the crowd. Some faces were curious, some indifferent. One, Ms. Carter, froze in place. Naomi smiled slightly. "Good morning. I was asked to speak about gratitude." A pause. "And I will. But first, I brought something to share." She held up the flash drive. The tech assistant hesitated, but the principal nodded. Seconds later, the video played on the large screen behind her. The clip, the scarf, the scissors, the silence. The gasp from the audience came like a wave. The room changed, and Ms. Carter turned pale. Naomi waited for the video to end. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. When the screen went dark, she leaned into the mic. That happened in a classroom at this school in front of 30 students. And not one adult stopped it. The crowd was still. Even breathing seemed disrespectful. "I was told to be grateful." Her voice stayed level, but gratitude shouldn't require silence. She looked directly at Ms. Carter, and respect should never come at the cost of humiliation. A murmur swept through the teacher's row. Naomi lifted a folded paper from her binder. "This is a copy of the complaint I've filed with the Department of Education and the State Board. Multiple organizations are reviewing it now, including one that helped pass the Crown Act." She let the words sink in. This isn't revenge, it's responsibility. She scanned the students. If anyone ever tells you to shrink to cover who you are, so they can stay comfortable, remember this day. Her fingers trembled only once, then stilled, I didn't lose anything when my hair was cut. She paused, but they lost something when they did it. She stepped back from the mic, and the room stayed quiet, not out of politeness, but because no one could move. Naomi stepped back from the microphone. The room stayed frozen. No polite claps, no coughs, no whispers, just silence, heavy and real. Ms. Carter sat stiffly, face drained of color, her hands knotting in her lap. The principal adjusted his tie, cleared his throat, tried to move on. "Thank you, Naomi, for sharing your perspective." It sounded pathetic, even to himself. Naomi didn't flinch. She turned, walked calmly off the stage, and disappeared behind the curtains. As she passed, she caught small details. A parent in the second row wiping her eyes, a group of students shifting uncomfortably in their seats, one teacher looking down at his shoes, ashamed, and Miss Carter still frozen, realizing she wasn't untouchable anymore. Backstage, Naomi leaned against the wall, breathing in slow, steady pulls. She didn't need applause. She didn't need permission. She had said the truth out loud, and it could never be taken back. Outside, a few students hesitated, then started clapping, awkward at first, then stronger. Not for the speech, not for the school, for Naomi, and for every student who had ever been told to stay small. The next morning, the front page of the local news read, "Student exposes teacher's public humiliation. School under investigation." By noon, the school board released a statement. Words like deep regret, pending review, and temporary leave filled the page. Miss Carter didn't show up that week. An email from the district confirmed her indefinite suspension pending the outcome of a formal inquiry. In the teacher's lounge, no one spoke her name. Some were angry, some relieved. In the hallway, students watched Naomi differently now. Not like a target, not like a problem, more like a mirror. At home. Naomi sat at the kitchen table with her mother reading the official response from the Department of Education. Her mother exhaled deeply. "They're launching a formal review of grooming policies statewide." Naomi didn't smile, but she nodded once. "Good," she said. "Maybe the next girl won't have to film her pain just to be believed." 2 weeks later, Naomi stood backstage at a youth justice conference in Chicago. She wore a soft brown blazer, hair out. No scarf, no apology. A volunteer adjusted her mic. "You ready?" Naomi looked into the mirror. "I've been ready," she replied. The host introduced her. "Please welcome the young woman whose courage has sparked national conversations around identity, dignity, and the right to be seen. Naomi Ellis." Applause rose as she stepped forward. Her speech was clear, calm, and powerful. She didn't talk about pain. She talked about power. She didn't talk about revenge. She talked about reform. She ended with, "Every time someone tells you to change who you are, to make them more comfortable, ask yourself, is their comfort worth your truth?" She stepped back from the podium. No viral video this time. No explosion. Just hundreds of young faces. Quietly standing up, Naomi smiled. Not for the cameras, but for herself. She was no longer reacting to the system. She was changing it. A month later, Naomi returned to school not for classes, but to pick up her transcripts. She walked the halls slowly. The posters on the walls had changed. One read, "Your hair, your culture, your right." Another, "Respect is not optional." At the far end of the hallway, a small girl, maybe a freshman, stood alone by her locker. Her hair was in thick, natural coils. She looked nervous, eyes darting at passing students. Naomi paused. The girl saw her, froze for a second, then blurted out, "I saw your video." Naomi blinked. "It helped me. I wore my hair like this today because of you." Naomi's chest tightened just a little. She walked over, smiled softly. "How do you feel?" The girl hesitated, then said, "Scared, but proud." Naomi nodded. "That's exactly right." She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. She turned, walked away, transcripts in hand, future wide open. Behind her, the girl stood a little taller,